welcome to the Nameless Ones. I am Avian the Angel Healer, and you may have noticed that January of 2024 has been unlike any other January. There's a different frequency. We have this new frequency that's, I was going to say being pumped into the atmosphere, but the angels correct me. But it does feel like that. You may have had on the 1st, so on New Year's Day, you may have felt quite reflective, quite nostalgic. This was not planned. My partner drove me down the road of where I grew up in my childhood in Glasnevin in Dublin. Hello, any fellow Glasnevin frequenters. And it was New Year's Day. We'd rang in the new year in Portmarnock Hotel, Portmarnock is a sweet spot for us. So we had a lovely New Year celebration. We were feeling very peaceful and calm. We'd had a beautiful Christmas, and my partner drives me towards this old church that I used to frequent as a child and into my early teens. The church is Our Lady of Victories, and it's right across from my old childhood school, my primary school. And I haven't been in that church for so long. And when I stepped inside and I saw all the stained glass windows, and it's a very humble, simple church, but it has, like all churches, it has its own signature style. It has its own stamp. And just seeing the abstract art and the stained glass, the colours, just brought back a flood of nostalgia and appreciation and gratitude for the many blessings of my childhood, and for the gifts that my parents, the values that my parents gave me and taught me and showed me. And of course my dad, who's 10 years gone now, there was this, even before we got into the church, I felt my dad. Sometimes he shows up and it's very strong, and it's often when I'm relaxed and happy. And for those of you who miss loved ones, who've transitioned back to source, I would highly recommend, if you really want to connect with them, and you probably notice this anyway, but when you're not trying to, when you're actually being your natural self and you're relaxed and you're content, that's often when you'll get the smell of them or the feel of them, or your heart will open up and you'll hear a song on the radio, or you'll see their name somewhere, and you know that it's not a coincidence. You know it's a synchronicity, that it's actually that soul reaching out across time and space to say hello and to say I love you, Happy New Year. And that's what my dad was doing. And when I stepped into the church, it was so strong. And as I was feeling it, I just let the tears, happy tears, just fall from my cheeks, and just fully embraced it and felt that winter, reflective, nostalgic, natural emotion that I think is part of winter solstice. I believe it's part of the Christmas celebration. I think it's healthy to have shed a few tears for your past, for people you love who've passed on as well. And I've always felt that winter solstice and the season of winter and autumn as well, it is a time to feel and to really go into our internal world, our inside universe, and to reconnect with who we are becoming, who we've become, to acknowledge where we've been, to acknowledge who we've been. So I could see this little girl in her communion dress. I could see I actually went and sat in the spot that I sat with my parents and my brothers on my communion day, feeling like an angel from heaven in my white dress and my veil. And I could see the confession box where I had my first confession. And, you know, those of you who know me well know I'm not a religious person. But I do, as an older lady in her 40s, I do value the space that churches. I've always loved churches. I'm quite drawn to icons, you know, like of the God. I call it the goddess, but it's like the Mary, the Holy Mary. I have quite a few paintings and pictures, and I love to paint the feminine. I always have. So much so that I remember I went through a period of painting nude feminines, and when I was in school as a teenager. And some of the girls in the class asked me if I was gay, because I would always paint these. I just think the female form is beautiful. I love its roundness, and I like round things, and the fact that it flows, and its softness and its curvatures, you know. So I always enjoyed painting that or drawing that. But yeah, I love spiritual spaces where people and communities can gather. I'm not necessarily a fan of religious doctrine and dogma, but I think I was able to I can step back far enough in my maturity to say I like that this is a holy space where we can come and we can listen. And myself and himself, we sat and we meditated like we always do when we visit a church or a cathedral. We always meditate. And I noticed that I didn't see any crucifix in this church. And I'm glad about that. I'm not a fan of seeing a man who was bludgeoned to death nailed to a cross. I don't think it's a good image for anybody, especially children. I don't understand. I think it's used as a way to control people and to try and inspire Catholic guilt, and I don't think that's healthy or functional. I don't think that Jesus, who was an incredible healer, a son of God, as I'm a child of God, a daughter of God, you're a son of God, we're all sons of God, right? I don't believe that he would appreciate that. I've had a few conversations with who I would call Yeshua ben Joseph, Jesus, the Christ consciousness, and it doesn't match the energy that I connect with and have had the pleasure of speaking to and channeling and connecting to. But yeah, I'm really glad that I know that maybe there is and I didn't notice it. Okay, maybe I'm just not drawn to that because doesn't match my frequency. But I'm just thinking, I don't think there's other churches I've been in where it's quite a strong symbol, you know, the naked man on the cross. I remember in school that was in every classroom. I used to stare at it and was quite confused and perplexed by it, and it just didn't make much sense to me. Why are we looking at this or gazing at this? And what's interesting now as I'm talking about this is I'm getting those tones, and these tones are when a healer gets those tones of different tones in your ears, like people call it ringing in the ears. And we're not talking about tinnitus, okay? It's not a health issue what I'm talking about. It's the toning. What that is I'm getting a download right now. So this is blocks of thought, blocks of consciousness, frequencies that I will later process. I'll start to process it now. And then later on, I will translate that for and on behalf of the collective and on behalf of the people who are interested in my work and interested in the frequencies of the angels that I communicate on behalf of. So there's going to be more on that, because that came in very clearly as I began talking about this, and I didn't plan on talking about this, so there's something in that. But you may have felt that the start of January you were feeling a deep sense of gratitude, of appreciation, of feeling very blessed and feeling the goodness of what your life has brought you and where it has taught you how to enhance and become more of who you are and who you are becoming and who you want to be. It's so easy, especially in winter when it's dark and grey, and I'm looking outside, we've had a lot of rain, it's been so dark and grey and damp here. It's so easy to allow the external environment to dictate our moods and dictate our thoughts. But we have to rise above that, and we have to be bigger and stronger than any darkness, symbolic or otherwise, that is around us at times. Understanding that it is natural that there are times in life that are dark, just like the winter is dark, right? You have the winter of your life, you'll have the summer of your life, you'll have the spring and the autumn. Our life is literally seasonal in its frequency and in its energy and in its emotion. But what I feel you're going to find is, as you allow yourself to fully express this nostalgia or remembrance, pull it into a space of blessings. That old adage, count your blessings, is so true and never more powerful than now than ever before. We're living in a very, very restless world of turmoil in many ways. We're on the brink of the world splitting into different dimensions. But what I feel is, if you can see the beauty of all of it, and my childhood was far from perfect. It wasn't perfect, but there was a lot of things that were perfect about it, and there was a lot of things that were just right, and there was a lot of things my parents got right. And focusing on that and focusing on the beauty and the innocence of whatever you're nostalgic for, whoever you're missing. My dad wasn't perfect, but there was a lot of him that for me was, and there was a lot of his qualities and a lot of his character that I just adore. And I say that in the present tense because he's still very much alive in spirit for me and for those of us who loved him. So I was told that on the 3rd week of January, the angels said that just pace yourself, rest, enjoy these feelings of blessings and appreciation, and be sure that you are choosing to rest your awareness in beneficial frequencies, because things are certainly going to pick up pace. This is not a typical January where we're kind of, it's not like that. if anything, you may have felt by New Year's Eve that you were, you were quite enthusiastic and raring to go. Well, by the 3rd of January, whatever's been stuck, whatever ship you've been waiting to come in, I would not be surprised if that information, that ship comes in to port around the 3rd of January, because by February things are going to really pick up pace. And I'm just being shown the 8 of Wands, which is a tarot card symbol, and it has all these fast moving wands, with all little new sprouts of growths. Like they're like, if you imagine like the branches of trees with little branches coming out and new growth sprouting out, and they're flying through the air. They're like, whew, and the 8 of Wands means activity. It's Cupid's arrows of love. It's communication. What else? The 8 of Wands is fast moving events. Delays are over. That's what, by the 3rd week of January, things are going to have that 8 of Wand, fast moving. Things suddenly turn around, or you get that job promotion, or you finally find the place you're going to move to. It's like the wheel turns into this new frequency that is actually already being showered upon us. So I said to a friend, rest until the 3rd week of January, because you are going to need to be rejuvenated and inspired as we approach the end of the month. So if you're feeling emotional, or you're feeling extra melancholic, or perhaps like me, it wasn't really melancholy, it was more a contentment, a peacefulness, but also a sense of appreciation and gratitude for the beauty of my messy, simple, humble life. You can bring that positive energy into this turn of the wheel, into this new timeline that is going to fully kick in and activate as we approach the 3rd week of January. Now, I was talking to Horus the astrologer. So I think is it Horus's Horology on YouTube. I'm sure Horus will put his comment below for his YouTube channel. He's a brilliant astrologer. I highly recommend him. And I was saying, rest until the 3rd week, and I was like, I wonder what's going on 3rd week of January, because I just keep getting that message. And he said there was something astrologically happening there. I can't remember, something to do with Pluto. Was it Aquarius? I'm sorry, I'm not an astrologer, forgive me. But I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not surprised that there's some kind of cosmic planetary shift around that time, because I find that my messages often line up with these more worldly, practical changes as well. So yeah, then I was speaking to another friend, and she was talking about some emotional stuff and reflections on her past and her childhood that she had never really pondered before. And she was amazed that I was talking about the same thing, being in this old church from my childhood, and just all the times as a school we would have gone over there. I sang in the choir there. I remember there was a boy who fancied me from the boys' school and the girls' school were brought together, and he would send me love notes and send it to his cousin who was in my school, and she would pass on these little love letters, and I still have them, by the way. These like really innocent, sweet love letters from when I was really young. And just the simplicity of life and of those times, and the innocence. And I think it's important that we remember and we honor and we value the innocence of our childhood and who we were as a child, because by connecting with that, you're actually healing your own inner child now. And your inner child is with you no matter what. You could be 110. You still have an inner child. Your inner child is still alive and kicking inside you. You may have neglected your inner child and abandoned them. You may have, and that's very common, by the way. A lot of the time people are depressed or feeling uninspired, it's often because the inner child is not being listened to, is not being acknowledged. So it's just about feeling that appreciation for the simple things and for the things that your parents got right, for the things that your teachers got right, you know, the people who crossed your path, who maybe you met somebody who was like a father figure for you, where your own biological father wasn't there or wasn't able to fulfill, but you met this teacher or this person who was able to fulfill that, or a mother figure, or somebody who was like a big sister. You know, I never had any sisters. I had 2 older brothers. So just feeling the value of how your soul and their soul cross paths at a perfect time for you, and feeling the gratitude, feeling the blessing of that. I don't think we do that enough. I think, and I have to say this, especially with the younger, newer generations coming in, there is this expectation of being given to, and I think it's important to say thank you. I think it's important to, and I'm not saying to say thank you for the sake of having good manners, although that's nice too. I'm talking about genuinely feeling, you know what, that was awesome, that was beautiful. At the time it was so normal and it was so simple, and it was just the everyday. But looking back, you're like, wow, that was magic. Like, my first memories of meditation is, so every morning my mother and my brother, my older brother walked to school on his own, so me and my mother and my brother would walk to school. And looking back, it wasn't far at all, but as a child you think it's a long walk, right? And my first meditation was, especially on the winter cold mornings, we'd go a little bit early so we could drop into this church, the one that I went back to in OLV, Our Lady of Victories in Glasnevin. And we would go into the church, there'd be no one there, it'd be early in the morning, and we would light the candle, say a prayer, and we would just sit, and my mother would say, just take deep breaths, breathe. We'd sit and we'd kneel, or we'd sit quietly in the stillness, in the dim lights with a candlelight, and we would drop into the stillness and the silence. And my mother would say, just enjoy the silence and quiet your mind. And this is where my meditation practice began. And I noticed as a little girl that the mornings that we did that we meditated, that we prayed, that we listened to the stillness and the silence, it brought a high frequency into my school day. I felt more aligned, I felt calmer, I felt happy, I felt connected. So honestly, I have my mother to thank for that. Both my parents were quite meditative in their lifestyle, and in the fact that they loved nature and the garden and art and culture, and they certainly passed on those values, which I'm very grateful for. But just the simplicity of that, and how that simple act of encouraging us to be quiet and still and to enjoy that and to bathe in the peacefulness of that sparked a whole passion for me, because I've been teaching meditation for donkey's years, and I've been, you know, when you're doing meditation that long, you get to a point where you don't even need to formally meditate anymore, although I still like to do that. But you're actually, the way you walk is meditative, the way you talk, the way you be in your environment, in your world, is an act of meditation, because it becomes so ingrained in how you carry your energy and how you embody that energy. And I'm sure a lot of you out there who are watching this know what I'm talking about. You're like, yeah, I when I wash the dishes, when I wash the dog, I'm meditating. It becomes that kind of masterful, natural, organic part of your life. And I'm a big proponent of that. I'm not a big fan of people who jump on the meditation trend and put a lot of frills and bows and glitter on it and try to make it this trendy thing. I think if we go back to our ancestors, meditation was a natural part of their everyday life, just like prayer was. And for me, I know the benefits of that because I've lived it. So yeah, this was just a little message about that January energy. And like I said, if you're feeling nostalgic, bring it into a place of appreciation, and remember that as we come into the third week of January and it moves on towards the end of the month, expect things to pick up pace. Prepare for that offer to come in that you never thought would come. Maybe there's things you just gave up on, maybe there's projects, maybe there's promotions or places or things that you just, in the last few months of the last year, you were like, you know what, I just have to park that. Well, you may have parked it, but what you're going to find is it's going to seek you. It's actually, you're not going to have to hunt for it. It's going to come, it's going to seek you. That's what you're probably going to find. So I really like these. I like dynamic energy. I love when things are moving. But I also appreciate the balance of having a bit of rest to prepare, because I know in my own personal life, I know I've been told, I've been shown, I know things are going to get real super, activated, shall we say, by the third week and moving forward. I know I have a lot. I actually have hospital as well in February. So I'm preparing. I'm mentally, emotionally, physically preparing for that now. And that way, it's great to have a bit of time to process things. And that's probably why you're feeling so reflective as well. You're processing so that you can be in go mode when that new frequency anchors in and grounds into your body and into your energy field. Okay, so that's what's happening right now. If you enjoy this video, you can show your love and kindness by giving me a like and a subscribe, and I wish you all the best. Happy January.